Okay, and going to stop the share for a moment. All right, we'll get started, and then anyone else who happens to hop on, they can catch up as it goes on, or they can catch the recording after, and or if you have to leave early, thanks in advance for being here. And then if you want to finish the video or talk later, you'll be able to do so as I'll post this on YouTube. I do have it where everyone is muted and then in the chat. So co-host and host are the ones who can see the chat. So if you have questions about anything, I'll be able to see it. And so I'll repeat the question to the group. I do this as a security measure. I don't know why, but like spammers and Zoom bombers are still a thing. So I appreciate your help. If you do spot something that seems kind of off, please let me know, so I may boot that human or bot or whatever. And my apologies for such if that happens. It's just kind of the world we live in now. So I do, you know, am grateful for your patience with any of that. So getting started though, so tonight's talk is about rewiring the brain, or the neuroplasticity for happiness. And so I'm going to do a share screen, and I do want to leave time for questions or just highlights and conversations at the end. So I may skip over one little piece or part that I have, but we'll see. I'm not sure if I want to share the sound, because then you won't be able to view some of the things. That's not what I want to share. So go out of here. Here we are. And before we jump into this, so my name's Carmita of Smiles, Yoga, Wellness, and Meditation, or SYWM. So I offer classes on mindfulness, meditation, a big focus on self-awareness, and I also teach adaptive yoga. So adaptive yoga meaning how to adapt your practice to your body and your abilities, which could be just using your body and maybe having like your yoga mat, or it could be also utilizing different props such as chairs or straps or pillows or blankets, or sometimes even books if you don't have blocks. So if you have questions about any of that, depending on how you found this talk, feel free to reach out to me. You can see my website address at the bottom here, which can give you links to how to reach me and or through the various groups. So some of you, I know I'm registered through Eventbrite, so thank you. You can reach me again through Eventbrite if you have questions, and others might be in the meetup group. If you're not, that's a great way to stay in touch and also know where I'm teaching classes at or offering virtual classes. So I encourage you to join that group if you may. There's no fee to join the meetup group. It's just a place to build community and to kind of put everything in one space or center. And bear with me with this presentation today, as I'm using kind of some new tools to help me get through this. So as I mentioned, this will be neuroplasticity, rewiring the brain for happiness. So I have some slides which are basically going to give that basic rundown of what is neuroplasticity and how can it help, and then we'll get more into how can it help you on your journey to happiness or neutrality, or just kind of gratefulness or mindfulness, coming from maybe a state that may be a little bit more negative or anxious mindset, or something that you're just trying to go into more of a positive direction with, or just find a moment for self-calm. So before I even get into what is neuroplasticity, in general, if you break it down into what is plasticity, that is having the ability for something to mold or change. So then when we put neuro with it, that is coming into relation of the neurons in our minds, in our brains. So that's how they came up with neuroplasticity, which refers to the structural, functional changes in the brain that happen as a result of new experiences. So this plasticity, as I mentioned, it's that changing or molding, is referred to neuroplasticity because the brain can rewire and or reorganize itself after something, as you know, something with brain damage might have occurred or might have happened, and as new connections are formed in the neural pathways. And even though this definition targets kind of that brain damage or damaged brain areas, it can really happen with anything, as we'll get into, where as you're growing up, it could be that you're learning something, you're learning how to talk, you're learning things that stick in your memory, you're learning new habits, you're learning how to do something. It could be how to wash dishes, how to cook something, how to organize something, or read a book, or learn a language is an excellent example of basically your brain gets wired to those things. So we learn how to speak, we learn how to do a task, and so the neurons in our brains, start to understand that. And so that's when you can get to the point where you're not even really thinking about doing something. And so basically it's like if you've ever done something and you're like, oh my gosh, I do that without even thinking about it. It's because maybe, for example, you've done it so much that your brain just recognizes it and it just does it without you understanding or thinking about it, because the neurons have become so strong for that thing that you're doing over and over again. And so that helps to build those habits, that helps to wire that into your brain. And so when we think of rewiring or reorganizing, that's that same thing. We're learning something new, maybe. So they always tend to give that example of brain damage, because if you are in an accident or you have something happen, or someone that you know had something happen, it doesn't mean that your brain cells are just gone, or those neurons are just gone or broken. It's you can rewire or relearn something. So hopefully that makes sense. And so, as I mentioned, in these basic terms, it can also be growing, evolving, or adapting, changing in basic terms. So this can occur no matter if a physical or psychological change takes place. So it could be learning, playing an instrument, for example, those motor skills, learning how to speak, possibly, or someone who speaks through sign language, learning how to walk or play a sport, something in your memory. It could be even gaining an addiction or going through a trauma, something that can cause PTSD, or even abuse. So something that's kind of a little bit more of my history is I used to run a pet care business. And when I ran that pet care business, I had quite a bit of clients who had rescue dogs. And some of the rescue dogs that I would assist with, take on walks or pet sit, came from traumatic experiences. It came from abusive experiences. So me being someone new and working with this dog would go back into this abusive mindset of they didn't know if I was a friend or foe. And so that's kind of an example of, because that dog experienced so much of something that was so negative and abuse, they would go into this mindset of how they would go into this reactive stage. And so having that dog move into a new home through the rescue, that dog's mind was able to rewire itself and learn that not everybody was abusive. Not everybody was going to cause a negative trauma. And eventually those dogs did learn to trust their owner and myself, because the owner was there with them all the time, and I was there consistently working with them, also taking care of them. So that's an example of a real life example of how the brain can rewire itself, just from an animal standpoint. We're going to skip this part of an example video. So I wanted to show just kind of a general kind of showing of the brain and the areas of the brain. So obviously with the brain, we have certain areas that deal precisely with our memory or with our physical movements. And so when you're thinking of neuroplasticity, those neurons and connections are all throughout the brain. So based on what you're learning or what you're looking to relearn, it will affect the different parts of the brain. So it doesn't always necessarily have to be connected to just one piece and part. So, and I do have an example of that. And it kind of gets you to think about also how the brain and mind can be two different things. And so the brain kind of runs in patterns versus sometimes we say the mind is where our thoughts kind of stem from. So the example that I have is our brain can change physically and through activities that can change certain parts. And so if you're thinking of something changing through physical change or an activity that you're learning, that would be through the frontal regions of the prefrontal cortex. So this is also where you have your control and attention also. So this is, which would be something that you're learning, an activity that you're learning. So that's just one area and one example of something that can be rewired in the brain, or an area of the brain that can be rewired. And so we also hear some examples of just kind of brain functionality. So I can give you an idea of if you're looking to build a new habit or you're looking to change something in the mind, this is the areas that it might also affect. So we have kind of in our mid-center, our parietal lobe, our visual functions, reading, understanding a language. So you're going to work with those neurons in that region of your brain if you're looking to learn a language or reading. Our vision, which is interestingly in the back, which is our, oh God, I always get tongue-tied with this word, occipital lobe. I can never say that word, which works with our vision. And then you have our cerebellum, which works with our balance, our coordination, and our motor learning, our speaking skills. So here, if you're someone who is doing yoga or you're doing some kind of sports, then you might work with that balance and hand and eye coordination. So you're going to work with those neurons in the mind, in the brain, if you're looking to rewire there. And then our brain stem, which is our basic life functions. And our temporal lobe, which deals with our memory. So also with, building habits and experiences that you've had in life. And if you're preparing to take a quiz, you're going to work with that region of the brain. And that prefrontal cortex or that frontal lobe is the bigger, larger general region that's going to do with problem solving, creative thinking, personality. This would also be the area that you might connect with if you get into chakras in yoga, your third eye chakra there in the front. So it just gives you a little more idea of the different areas in the brain and what you might be working with when you're changing and thinking about changing, different things and habits and such. Because our brains are always rewiring. And back in history, science didn't always believe that this was true. They thought that your neurons would just die off as people aged, but modern science has debunked this. I remember when I was a kid, they always say you're going to kill your brain cells. So that's not true that they don't come back. You can rewire, you can grow and build new connections, and you can help your brain and help yourself by taking care of your brain. So it just takes learning, good hygiene, habits, and lifestyle choices for starters. And so as we're thinking of just those basic things with neuroplasticity, excuse my typo there, neuroplasticity or plasticity in the brain, it is continually taking place, but you can encourage it to evolve and change for the better by, these are different examples, feeding the brain well, which just means eating well, fresh, healthy foods, getting adequate sleep, which can be different for everyone, living an active lifestyle or just getting movement. I know like during the pandemic, a lot of people felt very kind of seated and as if they weren't getting enough activity. So just, taking a walk for the day or stretching the body are examples of being active. Expanding your vocabulary, which is through that reading or learning or creative writing process. And a popular one would be using the opposite hand. So I'm right-handed. So to build new neurons and connections in the brain, I might use my left hand. And then learning all sorts of new activities and or meditating. And so basically, it's really just, this is going to also help going through these basic things, especially thinking about feeding the brain well and getting adequate sleep and adding activity to your life is going to be able to help and support not only general neuroplasticity and helping your brain to make new connections and to work your brain, but also in that journey to happiness. And we'll talk a little bit more about that after this. So thinking about physically the body and movement, and physiologically your emotions, thoughts, memory, and mindset, what is going to be a little more what we get into today. And some other general things that this can help, learning to build your neuroplasticity or adapting or changing or building new connections with it, is that it can also protect cognitive function and prevent age-related degeneration. Think of like dementia. It gets someone off autopilot, so you're challenging your brain and building new connections. Every time you do something new, that starts to build new connections, think of like a busy road. It starts to build new roads in your brain, and it's like taking a new route. And it can help with focus and attention. But rest is also very important. So I'm going to exit out of that so you don't have to think about the thank you yet. I'm going to stop the share for a moment. But I just wanted to give that kind of general direction and general definitions so you have an idea of how this gets into then building for happiness. And so basically, when you're looking to build new neurons or when you're welcoming neuroplasticity into the mind, it's kind of thinking about that example of the dog. So that dog was in a traumatic situation, and then it was able to move to a new experience that he had, or she, or whichever dog that I was working with, became very present in the moment, became very aware of what was going on, and eventually learned to move from a reactive stage to a responsive stage, and learn and understand that its new owners and through that they got through the rescue were not there to hurt or harm it, but we're there to help it. We're there to support the dog and give it a new positive life experience, including like having me come in and it getting comfortable with me walking it and offering it treats and feeding and attention and love. So we kind of have that same thing going on. So maybe if you're here tonight, maybe you're just looking to learn how to add a little bit more positivity into your life. Maybe you've had experiences that were not so great, or you have some habits that you feel kind of stuck in. And so you're looking to, well, how does my brain work with this? Or maybe you come into that awareness of your brain, but you're like, what's that next step to then move from, even for yourself, or I know for myself, I had to do it, moving from a reactive stage to a responsive stage, which also then incorporated some some lessons of coming into very much so the present moment and to some awareness and self-awareness. So first, it really does take that kind of a slow down. So kind of seeing where you're at to start, and how your mindset is, kind of taking a little moment of kind of like just testing yourself or kind of analyzing yourself to see what kind of headspace you're in. And maybe then, using a pen and paper to journal and kind of write down, what you're feeling or where your headspace is or where you're at in the present and where you'd like to be in the future. And journaling or writing down or even just thinking about that is going to allow you to welcome yourself into the present space. So you're not thinking about the past or future. You're just right there and kind of checking in with yourself. And then that also allows you to come into awareness with yourself, come into awareness with your mind, your thoughts, and maybe even your physical body, because sometimes it can be something that is going on with us physically that can have an effect on us mentally. And so earlier I mentioned kind of the brain and mind being two separate things. And so it's kind of like, so we're in our mind when we're thinking about our feelings and our experiences and what we've gone through, but it's your brain that has the habit. So even though you might be thinking about something and you want to work hard and you want to progress into a positive direction or neutral direction from a negative experience, it can be more difficult than we think, because our brain has been, working in this negative space for so long those are the stronger neurons. So that's the stronger connections in our mind. I have a friend, and she always says this, where it's like when me and her are working into something new, she's like, you always have this like day or night where it's just right before you break the bad habit. That feels like the most when you want to go and do whatever that bad habit is, or it feels like your brain just wants to like explode because it's like working so hard to do something that it's always done, but your mind is like, no, 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 now we're going to do something else. And so it takes time though to build up these new connections, to build and let them grow and develop this new mindset. And so journaling can be a great way to just really check in with that. Something that I recommend is even maybe kind of taking time to, maybe even do a progress journal. And it doesn't have to be pen and paper. Maybe you prefer to put it on an iPad or on your computer, or do vocal voice notes for your progressions. But that's a way that's always going to start to build awareness with yourself. And then it's going to start to tap in to those neurons and to those connections, going, okay, this is where I'm at. This is my state of mind or the emotions that I have about a certain thing. And I want to break that habit, or I want to learn something new, or find a new way, or start a new way. And so let me write this down to build a new route, to start building that new street that's in your mind, and take it. And so with journaling, having a progress journal, that can help you to check back in with yourself and see how much more of those neurons are growing, or how much stronger that connection is. For example, if you're someone that is maybe wanting to like drink less. So that was definitely my journey for a while. I used to work in the industry, in the bar industry and in promotions, and there was lots of celebrations and drinking and sorts of things. And I wanted to start getting away from that. And so I was working with tackling neurons and connections that went, oh, when I'm in this setting, I do this. So I started journaling and progressing and doing things that started to build connections, as in, okay, instead, I'm going to check in with myself. And instead of ordering such and such or going to such and such celebration, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to instead get like a sparkling water, or instead I'm going to go to a cafe and have tea instead of doing a social event in an environment where I was still in a reactive stage, and would just get there, take the beverage, and blase, which at that time was putting me in a more negative mindset. So it took me time, as it will for us, as we're learning anything new, it takes time. And eventually I got to that point after probably honestly a few years of, being more responsive, understanding, the consequences or resolutions of what I was doing when I got myself in those settings versus a different outcome that was a bit more positive. But my brain kept trying to like fight me and having those same patterns going on and on and on. But it was my mind that would come in and say, no, we have to build something new. So that kind of gives this, like, your mind is kind of that consciousness, that awareness, and to help you being more responsive with whatever you would like to go from something negative into a positive experience. But it does take time. And so it can take about, if you're starting to build these new neurons and connections in your mind, it can take about 66 days or so to start to kind of fizzle out old connections and old negative experiences or things that you're wanting to change, and get into that new habit. So it really is about being patient with yourself also, because if you're someone where then you do kind of dabble back, or you have, maybe not a good day when you're looking to be a positive person or gain a more positive experience or add something that's going to build a little bit more happiness into your life, there may be some bad days, or there may be outside experiences that kind of have a downer effect on you. So it's really just also being kind to yourself if and when that happens. And then if you have like a journal or you're just thinking about things, that can help you to reflect and get back on track, or encourage you to get back on track to building happiness. And so there are other ways than just also kind of journaling to welcome the awareness and building of new neurons and neuroplasticity for happiness. And so once again, if you have like a pen and paper with you tonight, so one way that, or kind of a continued way that may help you, is kind of this example of, as I mentioned, the mind helping the brain. And it can go back to your attention and focus, which can also be in that front zone of the brain. And as I like to mention again, like that third eye region, we talk about third eye in yoga, kind of that awareness region. And it's really that the more awareness we welcome into our mindset and into the present moment, that can welcome for positive change. Many people tend to either kind of gain an anxious mindset or saddened state by getting too lost either in the past or getting anxious about the future. And so if you can let the mind help the brain and take this attention and focus back to the present moment and into awareness, that can start to help to, kind of get rid of that anxiousness or move away from that sadness of being lost in the past or the future, because it's not here yet. And even though you plan for it, maybe especially in the holidays, we could definitely plan for it. It's with parties or families, or maybe just vacations away and not thinking about holidays. You're still in that future, or maybe some reflection of the past. And so just helping bring that attention and focus to the now can be very helpful in helping the brain to build a little bit more happiness connections, because you're just focused on what's happening. Another way that can help you is as in like the slides that talked about doing activities and learning new languages and all this. Those are all things that are going to put you in the present moment also, because typically if we're learning something new, you're more aware because maybe you're in an environment that you're not too sure of, or it takes a lot of focus and concentration to kind of get through that process of learning something new. And that's going to definitely bring your focus and attention and awareness to the present moment. So it can just be a positive activity that you choose to do. It could also be something like forest walking, or just taking a walk outside of your general environment. If you're kind of a homebody, maybe it's just taking a walk around the block and looking at what's around you, looking at maybe the cars going by, if there's a dog barking, looking at houses or trees that you go by. That's going to welcome you to the present. And that can also help boost your morale. That's going to help you feel good, because you're getting any stagnant energy from sitting or being home kind of releasing, and that's physical activity. So that's going to help to kind of bring renewal and kind of like a reset to the mind. And that's going to help to welcome some new building of neurons and things in the body and brain, because you're using new parts of the body that maybe you don't use often in that sort of way. Another one can also be offering yourself gratitude. Now, this one is one more where you can do it in different ways. And a lot of yoga and wellness folk tend to be big on gratitude, because it has been proven now, even in science, that it really can be beneficial for your overall self-confidence. It can welcome renewal. It can welcome relaxation. It can welcome just a breath of fresh air to the mind, because quite a bit of us, like I said, if we're getting lost in the past or the future, that can take up time. And or sometimes if you're just dealing with low self-confidence, gratitude is just another form of, you could say affirmations and or vice versa, affirmations of gratitude. And it just welcomes you to the present, especially in the beginning when you start using them. And then it kind of builds, and can help build new neurons and memories and focus and attention in the brain too. So an example of a gratitude and or an affirmation could be just saying, I am enough. And you could do it at any time. I encourage, if you're first starting on using gratitude and or affirmations of gratitude, you may want to do it in front of a mirror. You may want to even write some down on a notepad and sticky tape things and put them up to a mirror. And just looking at yourself and saying, I am enough. I am here. It could be something general as I am grateful. It could be something as I have nothing to prove to anyone else, especially if you're working with affirmations or working with something where you're looking to build confidence, maybe in the workplace. Our workplaces can be very competitive, no matter what the job. And sometimes those above can kind of put quite a bit of pressure. And so really that affirmation of, I am enough, and or I am doing my best, or I am not here to compete with others, can be very helpful. And you almost start to feel like this light kind of weight lifted off you as you speak affirmations like these. And so there are tons of them on the internet that you can find if you're having difficulty kind of coming up with affirmations and or kind of speaking gratitude to self. So the internet always kind of welcomes that. And affirmations and gratitude kind of help and can help the brain kind of feel good. It can kind of welcome these feel good chemicals into the mind. Things like dopamine, endorphins, oxytocin, serotonin. So, which is why if you have pen and paper or something to take notes on right now, I'm going to encourage you today to take a moment. I'm going to pause myself from speaking for a moment. And maybe if you would like, write down just one or two affirmations and or affirmations of gratitude that are something that you would like to maybe incorporate and just kind of think more on a regular basis, or kind of maybe, like I said, kind of post up on a mirror or on a wall or something somewhere where you're going to see it later. That's something positive. So I'm going to mute myself for a moment, and I'm going to get some other examples to share. And then if you would like, you can also share your affirmation that you wrote or your moment of gratitude that you're writing for yourself and place it in the chat, and then I'll share it with the group. So I'm going to set my timer and give, just about 3 minutes or so to do this exercise. I'm going to give about 1 more minute. And then if you have anything that you wrote down, please feel free to add it to the chat, and then I can share it. Beautiful. All right, we have Danella. I hope I said that right. Thank you for sharing. The affirmation or moment of gratitude to share is, I am successful. I am happy. Yes. Yes. Because these just simple sentences that help to build the neurons, help to start a new connection in the mind, especially like I mentioned, if you're dealing with some self-confidence issues or just some kind of negative mindsets, something simple like that can help to start to move away from those negative neurons. It's going to start to pull and take you off that road and put you on the new road of positivity that it's going to build. Is that Elias? I hope I'm saying that right. I apologize if not. I love it. I am loved. I am guided. I am supported. I am strong. Beautiful. Yes. I feel like I can just feel like these little tingles in my brain just from saying that. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So I'll read them again just in case you want to add them to your list out there. So we have, I am successful. I am happy. And we have, I am loved. I am guided. I am supported. And I am strong. Yes. And you can think of this, another example or way to look at this is kind of like a sport for your brain. So when you first start learning how to play a new sport, it can be rough. A good one is right now we are in basketball season, I think still, at least for my nephew. And so when he first started, it was tough. I mean, him and the kids on the other team, they were uncoordinated. They didn't know how to pass the ball. They didn't know how to, some of them didn't know how to dribble the ball at the beginning. And now it's been a couple months of practice, and some of the kids have gone to camps, and they've allowed this time to welcome themselves to their present moment. They welcome this focus on this activity. And now the kids that couldn't dribble can now dribble the ball. The kids that couldn't pass are now passing better as they play and taking shots and making baskets that they couldn't make before, but they had to continually practice. And even especially if you're learning something physical or using a new activity to help you to build new neurons, and you're looking and you're excited for this new activity because it's going to help bring some happiness in your life, there may still be some moments with that activity that don't feel great, or something gets lost, or it didn't go as well one day. But you keep at it, be patient with yourself, and just encourage yourself with these affirmations like this. That's going to help you to feel good. And the fact that you're doing, that you're trying, is something that you should be proud about, and will help to encourage and welcome a positive mindset for that. So beautiful, which sometimes it is just offering yourself an activity and focus in a time when you're not feeling great, or in a time when you're feeling kind of low, that can help to bring you to a neutral or positive state, which when I'm saying positive or relaxive or renewal, that can all lead to happiness. That's just another way of saying you're getting out of a negative mindset, you're getting out of this negative space and putting yourself in a neutral or positive space. And then having things like these affirmations, I am successful, happy, loved, can also be helpful. And that activity kind of is a physical way also of living these affirmations. Because if you're looking to do that and add an activity, if it's something that maybe someone else told you should do, or you're not really sure, or it starts to frustrate you, remember you have a choice in the matter too. So if it starts becoming something that's also adding to the negativity, you can always step back from it. You can always step away from that activity and take a breath And breath work and breathing is a way to move from a negative or anxious kind of mind state or frame of mind, or is going to put you in a trigger or a PTSD moment or a negative mindset also, and kind of welcome you back to the present so that you can move back to a neutral or positive space, which goes into my next example of, if you're not doing affirmations, then it can be your breath that helps you to move to a new state. It can be something like, which is a mindfulness practice, breath work, as we say in yoga, or just learning to breathe and connect with your breath and connect with your physical breath and body is a mindfulness practice. It can help to build new neurons in the brain and welcome that neuroplasticity to help build happiness, because it's going to soothe you and calm anxious mindset. It can help you to move away from something scary or fearful or sad or even egotistic. If you're feeling angry, it's going to help you bring yourself back into your body. It's going to help you to just kind of feel, and it takes time. Once again, it takes time to do. So when it comes to a mindfulness practice of just connecting with your breathing, there are loads of different types of breathing practices you can do, but really the most important can be just connecting with your breath. So it can be, I like to say in the beginning, if you're looking to work with your breath, it can be nice to set a timer. So if you find yourself, at home with a minute before you have to rush off to work or get the kids or go to the store or wait for the bus, you could set your timer to come into consciousness and awareness of your breath then. Or you can make it more intentional, where you set a little bit of time in the morning or some set time in the day or night where you know that you always have that time to yourself. And you can use that to come into your consciousness of your breath. And really, it literally is just that. You come into this place, maybe you're by yourself, or maybe you're doing it with a friend or partner, and maybe you just sit down, or you're standing, or you're out in nature, or just wherever you want. And you just start to notice your breathing. Just your natural breaths, your inhales and your exhales. You don't have to do anything more than that when you're getting started. And that can do so much for your mind, because then you're moving from this kind of unawareness. We're all usually typically unconscious and we don't even think about it. Our breathing has become, those neurons just know, okay, we always go down this road. We always go down this road. This is how they breathe. It kind of slows that again. It starts to build a new road of neurons in the mind going, oh, wait, what's happening here? And you get to come into this moment of just like, oh my gosh, just like, where am I breathing? How is it in my body? Are you breathing fully in through your nose and out through your nose? Is your breathing deep? Is it shallow and fast? Do you notice that you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth? Or do you breathe inhaling and exhaling just through the mouth? Another thing could be, where do you feel your breath? Do you feel it in your chest, your belly, or your back? So we are going to practice that right now. We have some time. So this is a great way to start. Like I said, it's going to build those new neurons because you're coming into focus and attention and awareness. It is going to take you out of those frames of mind of any sort of anxiousness or upset or something, because all you do is you come back to your breath. If you start to lose it, just think about coming back to your breath. Use your breath to help guide you. And so I am going to set a timer for just about 30 seconds or so. And I'm going to mute myself again and just take this 30 seconds to breathe and notice your breath and how you feel after. Okay, we went a little bit past 30 seconds. So take a moment to welcome yourself back. Take any release or deep breaths. And if you would like, once again, you're welcome to drop anything in the chat of maybe how you're feeling right now in this moment after just welcoming yourself into awareness and just noticing your natural breathing. And where did you feel it in the body? Was it shallow? Was it deep? Feel free to drop anything in the chat. I'll give that a moment. I know for me, I can always feel it, like in my upper back, because I tend to tense up and I tend to hold my shoulders through the day when things get a little crazy. And so that just allows me to release my shoulders and build that new habit for myself of releasing the stress, the tense, releasing the tension in the shoulders, and come to that consciousness. And once again, I feel like this kind of lightness in my brain and release through the neck. And I feel better just from that. So I'd love to hear how it made you feel. And there is an affirmation that goes with that. As I mentioned, I want to share some more affirmations too with you. One related to this is, I take a deep breath and allow myself to relax. My whole body calms down. I take a deep breath and allow myself to relax. My whole body calms down. Another one that might relate to, if you're dealing with other people, then you have, I accept others as they are, and they in turn accept me. I accept others as they are, and they in turn accept me. I won't quite on that one. That's okay. If you're still kind of checking in with your breath, that's going to help to be able to start to build new neurons, new neuroplasticity to develop, change and build new routes in the mind, which then can also move into, as I mentioned, it's gonna take some work and working with your brain to build, and these positive things that you're doing, like affirmations or checking in with your breathing, are kind of positive thoughts and positive action. It's going to work the neurons, which are like working muscles in the body, and that's going to start to build those roads. And if you're still kind of feeling down or looking into a negative mindset, you can go back to that journaling or progress journal to just check in with yourself. Take a moment, write things down. How are you feeling? Maybe put down what's got you feeling a certain way and why. And you could even have questions like, how do I feel right now? Or what is happening in the experience in life right now? And how do I want to feel instead? Those are some questions you could add to your journal. And then one more before I kind of break off. And then if you have any more questions, please let me know. Is something else that you can do, like as other than what I've mentioned in the slides, is kind of meditation. So meditation is another way that you can welcome yourself into the present moment. It helps that of focus and attention, and it takes work, but it can also help to break cycles or loops that you might find yourself in that are maybe causing you stress, that are maybe causing you anxiety, and or negative loops and experiences. And honestly, everything that was mentioned today could count as an assisted or supportive meditation. But also meditation can be literally just a moment of peace, as I like to call it, or a moment of just being. And you can use your breath to help you with that. So meditation definitely can take time, and it literally is kind of this contradictive thing of you just want to be, you don't want to think about anything. So you can use your breath to support that, where maybe it starts first, you set a timer for 1 minute, and you do your best to just be in the present. Maybe you close the eyes if you're not driving or walking or something, no active movement. And you just breathe, and you help to think about your breath. I am breathing, I am breathing, I am breathing. And that helps you to just be here, be in the now. And your mind will start to build on that And eventually you might not even notice when eventually you get to the point where you're not even saying I am breathing. You're just breathing. And your mind is just completely clear. It's not thinking about the past. It's not thinking about the future. It's just here. That's going to start to build new neurons, new roads. And that can also be something that can help you build on to a road of happiness. Things to remember is just that always being patient with yourself, offering yourself gratitude, unconditional love, more patience. And also, it just takes time. It takes time, but you do have a choice in the matter. So to break old negative patterns and experiences, which in the brain are just old neurons and old neural connections, it takes time to build new ones. Remember, it takes about 66 days to build new neurons, new patterns. So whether you're breaking an addiction, you're breaking a habit that you're not so proud of, you're working on maybe saving for something, or you have a goal in mind, it's going to take time. And if it's something that you're working on in this 3D world that we are in, if it's a goal that you have in mind, if it's a place you want to be, it may take a bit more time than that 66 days. So it may take more time to get there. That's going to welcome getting that physical thing or getting that thing in this world, this life, that's going to welcome you to a happier place. And so offering yourself unconditional love before then can help you to find gratitude and happiness in the present moment. And having affirmations to help or support you along the way can also welcome moments of thankfulness, gratitude, and happiness before you get there. But remember, it's really just breaking a cycle is kind of what you're doing, to put it in basic terms. It's breaking off this road. It's breaking this pattern. It's stopping that neuron. And you're just kind of welcoming new ones through new experiences, journaling, new meditations, because all of that is new habits being built. We're really just kind of always, I like to look at it as replacing a habit with another habit. Anything that we do consistently is kind of a habit or a personality trait, you could say. And so it's how do we get from a negative one to a positive one? So that's going to offer maybe more positive experience, going to offer more smiling moments, or even just moments of, I can deal with this because this is something happening in my outer environment and I don't have control of that, but I have control of myself. And that's like an affirmation that I use for myself all the time. Like if I'm running late and it's a car accident, that has nothing to do with me. I have to be okay with, this is not my fault. I have control over how I feel right now. Maybe I'll just turn on some, CD that I really enjoy while I'm stuck in traffic because of this car accident or something like that. So it can be kind of bringing this kind of point of moving from the outside also environment into self, which is what all those kind of examples kind of help do. Those affirmations are for yourself. That breath work is for yourself. That journaling is putting your mind and your brain and your habits and things on paper yourself. And you have control of those things. You have that choice. But it can just take moving from that habit, moving from that reactive stage, because those neurons are used to working on those roads, and coming into the present, coming into awareness with what you're doing now or what's going on now with yourself that you can then learn to build and be responsive to. So I hope that you found tonight's talk helpful or beneficial, or a starter to help you think about neuroplasticity, which if you're thinking about something new and you hadn't heard about it before, you just built new neurons. So you just built new connections right there. So you should be proud of yourself for that. I hope if you journaled or wrote anything down for tonight or these affirmations, please keep them with you, keep them on you. And so what I'm going to do next is I am going to put a 30-day check-in. So at the end of January, I'm going to put a part 2 to this. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into some of the things discussed tonight. We're going to go a little bit more into the history, and we're going to go a little bit more into how the brain works and its functions and what can help aid you along with this journey. And I would love to hear from you and how you're doing. I would love even if it's like, I did these affirmations for a week and then I blase, like whatever, or if you're like, I looked at these affirmations, every other day, or I made time to journal I'd love to hear how that's, how you're doing, where you're at, and maybe what experience that you were dealing with, if you feel comfortable sharing, and then, how that's changed or how that's molded in the mind differently. So yeah, if you have any questions or anything from tonight, please feel free to drop it in the chat. I appreciate you being here. I'm super grateful for all of you. I would love to see you back in that 30-day check-in just to see how things are going. We can, like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about how our minds work, because there are some differences just based on our experiences. Otherwise, yeah, you're free to go. So, but yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. Like I said, or if you want to stay back and chit chat after, I'm happy to stay on, and you can turn on, of course, your video or your voice. And if you have any questions, I'm totally happy to stay and talk about that. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. All right, let me know if you have any questions, or if you just forgot to turn off your Zoom, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm here if you'd like to talk.